This is the last place I kind of go when I'm setting something up. Uh, I come into the full parameters list, to tell you the truth, and I just go down through it, grooming it. Just checking everything, putting things the way I want them, making sure there's not anything in there that's totally wrong, and just making things right in general. I guess this is what really is daunting to people. I hate that. I do like ArduPlane, but let's go for it here. There's certain sections of this. They're sectioned off. You can actually go here and see the sections. Here's your acro. This has to do with board alignment, arming, airspeed, all that kind of stuff. Barometers, batteries. I could come in here and go in and do the things I want to do by opening this and changing these. It's just easier for me just to go down this list. So there's not much up here. The defaults will be fine. Minimum satellites so that you can arm and stuff, and this has to do with the calculations in the autopilot. And it says 6 minimum to arm. Personally, I like 7. It's personal preference. Just a little more before I can arm, and I'm a little more sure that I've got my GPS lock. It's giving me good information, good tight information, close to more accurate. The more satellites you get, the more accurate it is. Oh, let's see. Don't worry about all this much. Okay, now this has changed. I think this is where you set your return to launch altitude now. That used to be way down at the bottom. It used to be RTL altitude. Okay, I was looking for this yesterday. I have to run out and do something for me because I'm an old imperial guy and I don't understand metric spontaneously off the top of my head, so I need to convert centimeters to feet often. I think they were showing 10,000 centimeters there, which is 328 feet. Ow! Yes, 10,000 centimeters, 328 feet. You know, as you get above the Earth's surface and go up, the winds, you'd be surprised 100, 200, 300 feet up how much the winds change from what you feel at the surface. Fly, drones, you'll learn. So 328 feet, I'm not real thrilled with. Around here, I think I'm going to get away with 150. That'll keep me down closer to the ground. You saw the flame wheel maiden where it just didn't want to come down because it wasn't stable. I set a return at 200 feet, got above the trees here in the property, got up in the high wind. That was blowing it around, causing it to be unstable. Therefore, it didn't want to come down. Kept going up. It was a terror. 150 feet would have kept me out of that here. Difference of 50 feet that day. I got it down. Everything's cool, but I want to settle lower. So I'm going to set this to 150 feet, which is 4572. That's what it tells me. Centimeters. So I'm going to put that, what was that? 4572. Didn't want to paste. 4572. Okay. 4572, tab. I'll hit right later on these values. Let's see. Nah, some of these you come back later. This is how you learn it. You come right out here and you read this stuff. Arming check. Now, I've been playing with this one. I'm going to go back to all for right now. I'm still having trouble with logging. I think that might be my SD card. I'm going to go back to all for my maiden, and then I'm going to work backwards. Oops. Wow. Got to go in here and uncheck all of these. Oh well. They'll fix that eventually, where you can do all or some. Make sure I got them all unchecked. Oh well. I happen to know that a 1 is truly all. I'm going to write those right now just for kicks and grins so I can come back in here and show you. Yeah, see, 1 is all. These all have a binary weight, and as you click them, they add up to a number. So I'm going to leave that at all for the maiden. Arming, nope. Arming required. JD, this is the one I was playing with that got that no RC receiver started. Oh, I don't want to talk about this one much. Not you, JD. I was thinking of why I was doing it. And why I was doing it was because of my ESC calibration problem, which I will go over in my conclusions. This you can set to a 0. And also, there's a place you can set mode for the mode that it comes up in. We'll see that. So what I was trying to do here, I was setting this to a 0, so it came up armed. I was setting the mode that it came up in to manual so that I could turn on my radio, put the throttle to high, put a battery in the platform, and turn it on. And when the flight controller popped up, it would come up in manual mode, passing the signal, and it would come up in armed. And that way I could calibrate my ESC. I'm not going to say a whole lot more about that because I did get my ESC calibrated, but I'm not exactly sure how. And the steps I took, I don't want to share because they might not be correct and I might not really have an escape calibration. And I'll show this in detail in the conclusions. There might have been another way I could do it. I could go into channel 3 over here. And I may try that again if I can find a way that works. Might be able to come in here and just say RC3 temporarily as a pass-through instead of throttle. Yeah. Might be able to just do it as an RC pass-through and then bring the platform up. I'll try that. But I don't want to talk about that a lot because I'm still going to have to hit that ESC calibration kind of hard. So I was playing with this. I certainly recommend leaving it at a 1. Okay, this one I changed. The default on this is a 1, and that's arming with your sticks on your radio. I like to use 2. Its default is 1. You move your throttle low, rudder right, and it arms. Throttle low, rudder left, it disarms. That's what I like. So I'm going to leave that as a 2. That's right here. I don't use the push button. Didn't like it when it came out on the first Pixhawk that ever came out after I was using the APMs. I'm sure it's useful. I have used it. I have even glued it into the side of foam airplanes to be able to touch from the outside. I just didn't find it extremely useful. So I use this method, rudder arming, and I use 2. Okay, we're getting to the airspeed sensor part. So, okay. That was hard to find. And the reason that was so hard to find was because if you go over to Maytech's site, and look at the GPS I used. GPS. I'm still really fatigued. I sort of took it easy yesterday. Just kind of wore out from the flail Friday and then another late one Sunday night. Just been kind of rough lately. So I'm making mistakes from tiredness right now. Sorry about that. Plus, being almost 68 years old is always a handicap, too. I do good for my age, though. So this is the airspeed sensor I used. And as you scroll down on this page, you can see all the information they give you. And if you notice here, by the way, I ordered a new tube. It cost me $12 for the one I destroyed. Would have been $56 if I had to order the whole new sensor. So there's a little bit here. Here's your wiring, voltage to voltage, ground to ground, and of course on an I2C bus you always put clock to clock, data to data. There's your information, except for resellers. That information is actually buried in, oops, wow, there we go. That information is actually buried in the 765 documentation. And it's in here in 2 places. If you want to, you can dig it out right here. Whoops, no, I actually don't think the airspeed sensor is here. The battery information is right up here in the upper right. Don't think the airspeed sensor is here. For brevity, I'm just going to scroll down to their charts, which work great. And right here in the I2C chart, talking about an I2C digital airspeed sensor, you can see that the airspeed bus should be set to a 1. Airspeed type set to a 1 here. Oh, there was another place I found some more information. This is for using the pads on that. This kind of gave me an idea that the pin might be 10, but let's see how I handled that in Mission Planner. So right here, the airspeed bus 1, I did. And also, here's where I set the pin to 10. And also the airspeed type I set to 14. I just did that on my own because didn't find that information. There's one other place that might be. Let me go for that. But that I set that 14 for MSP. If you come out here now and I blow on my airspeed sensor just a bit, you'll see right here in the middle upper, I have an airspeed sensor now. Plus, when you power up with the airspeed sensor enabled, you'll get an error message right here that the airspeed sensor's not working right. When over in setup, I did the optional for airspeed here. This is all would really have had to be done. I kind of had to dig through to get to this point. But use airspeed and MSP. And that actually, I don't know if that will completely set it up over here for the, I don't know if that bus type is one by default, sorry. But, and then I use airspeed use. And here's airspeed 2. I don't do that. There is one more place I might find information, and that would be in the M8QCAN information. Maybe it's there. Let me see. That's what gave me the idea to try MSP. Well, you got to dig some of this stuff. I don't mind that. So let's see. Real quick. MSP parameters. GPS type. Got that here. We'll hit that as we get to that here. Compass barometer. INAM. No, there's not any particular things here for the airspeed portion of it. Yeah. Wow. It says here to set the type to 8. Oh, here. Mission planner. UAV CAN 1 parameters for the 4525 airspeed. Type 1 right there. Not type 8 up here. Type 1 right here is the way I'm using it. Still doesn't tell you the pin number. But anyway, the MSP worked that out. And I do have an airspeed sensor now. Auto tune, not going to be doing that yet. Barometers are fine. Okay, now we're in batteries. Okay, we'll jump back over to this list real quick again, right here. For, if you put an, if you solder something to the VB2 or CU2 pads on the 765 wing, which are right here. Right here. And then you would set your battery voltage and current differently than if you're using the external. So what this is talking about in the analog digital converter is these are the pads for use of an external analog digital converter and what voltage pin and stuff you have to use if you hook up there. This is for the internal, no pad, onboard stuff. So this is what you want right here, and that'll give you your battery voltage pin 12, the multiplier of 11, current pin 13 with an amp per volt of 40. And that's information you need right here. So as you come down through your battery here, amp per volt, battery amp per volt. Oops, I didn't set that already, did I? So battery amp per volt is 40. So we'll set that to 40. I'm not going to set a minimum to arm. Battery capacity, I'm using a 58 mAh. Don't. These are all voltages to trigger stuff. Remember the battery current pin 13 right here. Your battery current pin 13. Battery monitor 4. I want to monitor both voltage and current here. Battery voltage pin, you remember, 12. 12. Multiplier was 11. Now my battery, we're on battery volt pin when we come back. I don't have a battery plugged in right now. My battery voltage before I changed these parameters was reading low. When I set the correct pins and the voltage multiplier, my voltage jumped up and started reading higher than normal. So battery, you can see right now it shows 11.32 volts. It's a little high. Battery pin 12 and the voltage multiplier. This is lower than this at default. When we calibrate the battery voltage, we'll modify some of that and it'll get really, really close. But I do that with the meter and then calibrate it. So multiplier default they say is 11. I think it's going to be just a hair lower. See if I change that right now to a 10 and right. You'll notice out here that 11 volts just dropped down. If I set it to battery monitor 10.5. Here it comes up. You see 10.79. Where's my little... This is just a little battery monitor I'm going to put on the battery to give me a quick, dirty readout of the voltage, which for all cells right now it thinks it's 11.4. So the battery multiplier, I would come in here, 11.4. I'm trying to hurry, so let's make that 10.8. See if I have to write it to get it to change. Yeah. 10.8, right. Oops. Probably doing things that are outside of what I should really be doing. Let's try to change that again to 10.8. Tab. and right perimeters. 11.9. And let's see. Oops. And my all voltage was 11.4. So we'll try 10.9. Looks like maybe 11's perfect. Yep. So we're going to go 11. Just do what it says, I guess. And we'll look at this deeper again when I do come back and calibrate the battery voltage. 11.3, still reading a little low. So maybe it needs to go up a little bit. Anyway, let's move on from that. I think you're sort of seeing how this works. I'm just hitting some of these a little deeper, kind of try to show you how you play with these things. Oh, battery monitor 2. They monitor so many batteries. 9. You can have 9 battery monitors. Okay, coming down through here. Board safety. No. Camera. Shoot. Compass. I do the auto rotate, auto declination. There's going to be some deviations and stuff in here when I do the compass dance, and the offsets are learned. I enable the compass. It is external. I do use compass learning. I used to just use it normally, but now in 4.0 and above they have that little new thing where we use this 3 just in flight for a few minutes. We'll be doing that, talking about that more when we actually do it under the new. And then of course here's compass orientation. For iNav, this compass is rotated clockwise 90 degrees, but it doesn't tell me to do that for Ardu. I can see that the way the model's pointing right now, if I look at this right here, it's not correct. It's about 100, it is about 90 degrees out, but it's it is 90 degrees out clockwise. After I do the compass calibration, I'm going to do the compass calibration first before I try to rotate that compass to make it right, because I don't have information and it's just kind of me seeing that it's not reading correctly. I think it's going to fix itself when the calibration's done. So I'm going to leave this alone until the calibration's done. If it doesn't work like I think it should when the calibration's done, I'll dig deeper for information. But I think it should be odd 90 degrees. Compass 2, compass 3. So they have parameters here for 3 compasses. All this stuff I don't use. Some of this I don't understand after 8 years or more. Just didn't need to. I've kind of been crisis driven. Go learn the parameters that I needed to fix my current problem. I hate that, but that's the way I sometimes have to learn. Here's some fly-by-wire B values. Here's your geofence. Turn to launch on geofence, max altitude. Probably all of these are set in the geofence setup. I'm not using a fence at this time, so we're going to skip over that. Flaps, flow sensor. Now here's your flight mode channel. We talked about that before. I'm using 11, RC channel 11. And you can set your flight modes here if you wanted to, rather than in these flight mode lists. I've got some problems with that I'll be talking about. And we get into fail-safes. Ground control citation fail-safe. I'm going to turn on fail-safes for my maiden. So I'll come back and talk about these when I set them for fail-safe. Here's your GPS. I use auto-config. And right here's where you set GPS type. Remember, it's 19. And here's GPS 2 starting. We don't have multiple GPSs here. Here's your initial mode. And see, I set that and I left it to 0. I don't think that's going to make much difference, but you can set your initial mode right here. There was a gentleman I was trying to help at one point to calibrate his ESCs, and I was trying to tell him in plane how to set initial mode, and at that time in the version I was running and everybody was running, there wasn't one for plane, but now it's back. Here's your inertial navigation system, in other words, your accelerometers and gyros. There's not much we need to do in there. If there's problems, we can play in there. Automatic landings, logs, mixing gain. By the way, this is a VTEL. You want to make sure this mixing gain is 0.5 for VTEL. As we come down towards the bottom of this, we get more and more where we're just skipping over them. I will come back later and set an OSD channel right here so I can change my OSD screens. It seems like I have to tell it. OSD options, OSD switch method for those screens. So now you're going to come down through here for all of the parameters in your OSD. This is where it actually tells it what column, what you're using for everything you can do for OSD screen 1. Now you come down to the bottom of OSD 1. You see right here is OSD 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but they're not enabled. So you can see right now all those separate parameters for OSD1 stop right here. Now I'm going to have 3 screens. It won't hurt me, so I'm going to come in right now and I'm going to enable screen 2 with a 1 right here, tab and right parameters. Now then, I'm also going to do 3 because I want 3 screens. Right parameters. So those are enabled now. Watch this. I'm going to disconnect. Oops. Saw that I needed to unplug that battery because I don't want it sitting there and running down. And destroying another battery. Now watch what happens when I reconnect. I told you that the number of parameters in this list is dynamic. In other words, it changes dynamically. This is how one of the ways that happens. Watch what happens this time when we come down and get to the bottom of OSD 1. Oops, there we go. Here's the bottom of OSD 1. You remember Previously, the next was enable. Now that it's enabled, look, now we start getting all the parameters here for OSD2. Look at them all. I don't know how many there are per OSD. And here, now at the end of 2, we start seeing all of them for OSD3. That was because I enabled those features. And now you can see as you come down to the end of 3, now for 4, 5, and 6 screens, it still is just to enable or disable it. So the number of parameters in my parameter list just expanded dynamically when I enabled OSD screen 2 and 3. Okay, now we're going to get into the RC channels. I think Ardu sets up for 16 channels. So there's parameters for the dead zone, max, and min. These were the numbers. These were where those numbers were stored after we did the radio calibration over here in mandatory hardware and got all those numbers. They were stored in the RC parameters right here. RC7, RC8, max min. See, there's the numbers. So every one of these 16 starts with your dead zone, max min, goes through that particular channel's options, reversing that and the other, and then it starts over for another channel. There's 16 sets of these down to there, I believe, or 12, whatever the max number of channels are. There's not really anything to set inside there if you set it other places. Here comes your relay pins, how to control them, rangefinders, oh my god, rangefinder 7, rangefinder 8, 9, and rangefinder 10. So there's 10 groups of parameters there for 10 rangefinders. RPM max, RPM, APM pin, RSI type. I've never done RSSI, so I'm going to leave this to a 0 till I come back and play with it. I think that's something you play with after you've maidened and made sure you didn't turn your model into foam snow. And you get down into your serial ports here and what the baud rate and protocol is for serial ports. Then you go to servos, and then you're going to do the same thing on servos as you did on RC channels. For each servo channel, it's an equal number of them. You notice again, it's repeated down here for the pulsed width value for their servos. Servo function 16. Okay. So we're finished with 9, servo 9, and we're down into the SROs. These have to do with your serial data and stuff. Generally don't touch them unless somebody tells me to. Steering, very useful for rovers, for your steering modes, not so much on airplanes. Train follow, don't have that enabled yet. Do have train enabled. We're going to look at that. Hopefully I can find a place to fly that has a hill in it where I can do the train following experiments. Throttle failsafe, I have that disabled. Again, people might raise hell at me, but I Just disable all fail-safes for the maidens. Here's your auto takeoff and stuff, perimeters. Here's your auto tune for channels, your auto trim settings. Here's your reverse thrust. One little new airplane, I forget what you call it, does have reverse thrust. I was amazed. Your waypoint radius. I think this is also your radius around your home when you return to home. Anyway, we're at the bottom of the list. So I'm going to write all those out. Any changes I made. I'm going to save all of those as my mini Talon parameters. And that's kind of how I do my ArduPilot setups. So that would be a basic just setup. Go through the mandatory hardware list, go through the optional hardware list, come back and hit things in this list that aren't covered in these two more graphical, more graphical user interface lists out here. You saw there were some things that you just can't get to anywhere but in here. And each version that I've seen, that becomes less and less. They work on the functionality of the program, and then the things that are just user functions and helping the user interface and stuff has nothing to do with whether or not you'll crash your product. So they concentrate on you not crashing rather than making it pretty. I will make a conclusion video on some of the things like the ESC calibration and the radio calibration, which I didn't go into deeply when I crossed this in the optional hardware because I got this, but I have got most of those worked out. Thank you. Thank you. But as far as perimeters and stuff, I think covering the setup tabs and covering the full perimeter list, showing you how I do it. And the one when I was doing the VTEL mixing and I changed the reversed manual modes in my radio, a gentleman said, you know, you can come over here and okay, I am connected. Instead of changing them in my radio, what the hey is going on here? I can get connected back up here. That I could have changed them right here. Remember my aileron reverse? I could have changed it right here. I think it's 6.5 dozen the other. I could be wrong. There may be valid reasons for changing it here instead of the radio. I don't know. My radio, because I've copied models from my original model's been copied about 300 times to 299 new models, and had all sorts of channel changes and stuff made in between. So not knowing when I do a new model if this has got the default channel directions in it or not, I just change them in the radio. I feel like changes I make in the radio not going to cause a problem as much as when I reverse it in here, I don't know if it just reverses manual mode or reverses a stabilized flight mode. I assume it just reverses manual mode from that comment and help I got, but I wanted to hit that. So I'll be talking about some of those things that I didn't hit completely in these 12. I guess it turned out to be 12, didn't it? 12 little videos about how to set up ArduPlane on the mini Talon on a 765, my 765 plane. This is how I do it. I thank you guys so much, and I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your help. I appreciate you totally. And I'd like to say thank you very much. Have a great day.